The widow of Brian Malinowski is fighting to keep his guns. Let's go ahead and talk about it. What's up, Wolverines? Today we're going to be talking about Brian Malinowski and his widow and her new court case. But before we get into that, my name is John Crump. I'm an investigative journalist. If you can be a big favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about Brian Malinowski, who he is, what happened, and why his widow wants his guns back. Brian Malinowski was an airport executive that was raided by the ATF. They claimed that he was in the business of selling firearms without a license because he was selling firearms at local gun shows. So the ATF kicked off a big raid where, unfortunately, Mr. Malinowski was killed by ATF agents. There was no charges filed on Malinowski or the agents that killed him. Brian Malinowski was an executive at the Clinton airport. He was selling guns at a gun show, and the ATF thought that he crossed the line and was acting as a dealer without a license. So they kicked in his door under the cover of darkness and shot and killed him. The Malinowskis were under the impression that they were under a home invasion, and he went to defend his family. Unfortunately, it ended with the loss of his life. After ATF agents shot and killed Mr. Malinowski, they confiscated 35 firearms and over 22,000 rounds of ammunition. He was never charged with a crime, so that all should fall to his widow. But the ATF decided that they didn't want to give it back to his widow and they want to keep all the ammunition and the firearms. But you got to remember, they never prosecuted him, they never charged him with a crime. Yet they want to keep all these guns for themselves. So now his wife is suing the federal government and she wants all 35 guns back and all the ammunition. I don't think the government really has a leg to stand on here because they are trying to say that he got the guns through illicit means, basically saying that he got the guns to be able to sell them. But he was never charged with that crime and there's no conviction of that. So what I can see happening here is the federal government is going to turn around and use something called civil forfeiture and sue the guns and ammunition themselves so they can keep it. That has not happened yet, but I can see it happening. Right now, the federal government has asked the judge in the case to give them time to respond, and the judge has given them time to respond. Now, whether they go the civil forfeiture route or not, I'm not sure, but I can definitely see that happening because the government has abused civil forfeiture a lot in the past, and I can see them doing it here. The federal government always abuses civil forfeiture. If you ever wonder how the federal government can sue $25,000 in cash, all you have to do is Google United States first $25,000 in cash, and you will find a lot of information on civil forfeitures. Basically, the government claims if they sue an inanimate object, that inanimate object does not have the same rights as you and I, so there is no presumption of innocence. So instead of actually charging the person for a crime, they charge the item. A lot of times they don't even have a suspected crime. They just notice that someone's carrying a lot of cash. So they think, well, maybe they got it somehow illegally. We're not sure how, but let's go ahead and charge the money. And if they didn't get it illegally, they can go ahead and sue us. Usually, in those cases, what the federal government will do is say, we'll give you back half the money if you let us keep the other half. It is legalized theft, but I'm not sure if they're going to use it in this case, and we will not know until January 9th. January 9th is the date that they have to get back to the courts on what they are going to do. If they decide that they want to keep the guns, they're going to have to file a notice with the court stating that they are disputing the suit. If not, they will give the guns back, but it's the federal government, so of course they're going to want to keep the guns. The federal government and local governments always want to keep firearms. I will give you an example. I know someone who is close to me who had their hunting gun confiscated because they were hunting in the woods and a woman got shot through her trailer. When the police showed up, they found him, they arrested him, they took his gun and charged him with manslaughter. They dropped the charges 6 months later because the ballistics did not match. He went through a lot of hard times because he thought he killed someone, but the ballistics of the gun did not match. The calibers were different. And yet, when it was time to get his gun back, they told him that they weren't going to give it back because it was evidence. So they were going to keep it, even though that gun was not used in the killing of the woman. And it would be impossible for that gun to be used in the killing of the woman. He finally got the gun back, but he had a fight to get the gun back with lawyers. They wanted to keep it and they wanted to destroy it. And I can guarantee you the federal government and the ATF specifically want to destroy all 35 guns that they took from Mr. Malinowski's widow and the 22,000 rounds of ammunition, which adds up to thousands and thousands of dollars. Even if she does not want to keep the ammunition or guns, that should be money that she should be able to use to put in her pocket to help pay for her life now that the federal government robbed her of her husband and killed her husband, which puts a financial burden on her and her family. So that's it. Just wanted to make an update and let you know what is going on in this case. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Christmas is coming up. And yes, I'm wearing my now I have a machine gun ho 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 Christmas sweater. And with that, we are out of here. So stay ever vigilant, stay ever free, keeping the fight. I am out of here. Wolverines and Meffers.